then we have some space for questions. And it's about vertical soft tissue augmentation and papillary reconstruction. Okay? So still following this paper, we saw that case scenario number 1, where we do a surgery only, we don't do it anymore. No surgery only. It can work, but we don't do it anymore to be more predictable. Okay? Then case scenario number 2, when I have a recession and I have good papilla height, sometimes even if it's not perfect, but it's good height, we do the case scenario number 2, which as we saw, prosthetic part first, we wait, surgery, and that's it. Okay? So I do this most of the time, very predictable, works very well. If you learn how to do this, and it's more about your treatment plan in the head than your hand, you will have a very high predictability. However, not very often, but it can happen that we have a case scenario number 3, and this is the last case scenario, where not only you have a recession on the implant with this discrepancy, one or both papilla are flat. If we are talking around T of a recession T3 or a Miller class 4. Okay? So what do? We have to do a vertical soft tissue augmentation, okay? Which is the topic of this last part. So what do we have to do? We have to gain verticality. And when we talk about verticality in dentistry, I'm sure most of us we think a procedure like this, verticality in terms of bone. So this case, and we talk about this, we think about this, and so on. So basically, every time we don't go vertically, not every time, but we risk to have aesthetic complication like this. It's very difficult, but also very important and crucial, understanding that most of the complication is because we're not able to go vertically. A lot of time we have to go vertically with both bone and soft tissue. Okay. But when it comes to vertical soft tissue augmentation and papilla augmentation, these are the techniques that I have in mind and I found it in the literature. For example, we talked in the morning about the connective tissue platform from Professor Kelly. Once again, it was introduced for edentulous area. I worked with them in a case report with a group of Professor Kelly to treat an implant aesthetic complication. And I did myself as a surgeon a case series. So what is this technique about? You can see the original publication of Professor Kelly that he leaves on the crest some soft tissue, he removes the epithelium, and to gain height, you can put 1, even 2, even 3 soft tissue graft, and the key is to keep close by primary intention. It's the key, but it's also the most difficult part. Okay? We also did a case series, and I want to show you this concept with a case.
Tôi sẽ cho các bạn xem cái concept này với một cái ca lâm sàng.
Let me find another picture to show you. Okay. Before I arrive into this, I will arrive to this case. Okay. I want to show you that in residency,
Đây là cái ca lâm
I did a case of bone augmentation, mostly horizontal, but with a DPKF membrane. I wanted to go also vertical.
Thì chúng ta muốn
Okay, for
ta
what
sẽ
is possible,
sơn theo chiều dọc.
etc.,
Chúng ta sử dụng
etc.,
cái DPKF.
etc., etc.
Thế em vẫn sống được.
Okay. And then, when after 9 months,
Thì sau 9 tháng,
I reopened the case to place the implant.
đây là cái vị trí tôi bộc lộ.
Look how much bone I gained.
Các bạn đã thấy là tôi có nhiều xương.
Incredible, right?
Rất là tuyệt.
Actually, no. It means zero to me. I did a surgery in a patient
Nó không phải là
of 50-60 with already some attachment loss. I did a big surgery just to gain horizontal bone that is not needed, all of this bone like this.
tôi làm một cái phẫu thuật
So, back in the days when I saw this, I was happy
thực tế nó không có ý nghĩa.
because I didn't understand biology. It doesn't matter how much bone I gain if at the end, after placing the implant, I arrive to a situation like this.
Chúng ta có sự
Because
bởi vì
the more you do surgery in a patient that already has attachment loss,
nếu
it
bạn
was
thấy là
attachment.
cái răng của nhân nó đã
Okay? So it doesn't matter how much horizontal bone I have.
nó sẽ
Okay?
kéo chúng ta đấy.
Then sure, somehow we improve the situation.
Thì làm thế nào chúng ta
But
cân
that's not the point. Okay? So
Anh mới tìm một nguồn thư.
let's see a case of the connective tissue platform.
Nhập ở Hàn Quốc.
Thì
For
chúng ta
example,
sẽ
this
quay
one.
lại cái kỹ thuật.
Long crown, flat papilla, Okay,
Liên kết.
that's where we want to
Ra
write.
tiếng hay mua
We remove the crown, that again is a bicol implant.
Đây là
So
một cái
difficult prosthetic to manage. We decide to leave this abutment like this so far.
tôi quyết định là sẽ để
We
cái
open,
của mình như thế này.
like if we're doing coronal mass flap.
Tôi sẽ
This
lật
portion,
giống như là
once deepitalized, is the connective tissue
sau đó thì
platform.
tôi sẽ chừa lại một cái mảnh liên kết ở phía
We put a graph like this. I think this graph
sau đó thì
is
tôi
called
sẽ
tuberosity.
một cái
I harvest a connective tissue graph from the palate twice of what I need. Imagine that this space, imagine that this space is maybe, I don't know, 13. I harvest this 26.
15
So that, if you see my tie, you can do like this, and you can fold it and suture it to have a graph that is twice in height.
tôi lấy cái mảnh ghép dài gấp đôi
That's my goal.
sau đó thì tôi gấp đôi nó
Okay? So you have one graph on the back,
sau đó thì ở đây chúng ta dùng
should be a little bit higher. Sorry about that. One graph on the crucial aspect, on top of this region that has been deepitalized.
cái nền liên
Okay?
kết nó được
Again,
cử
that's platform. And I close by like this, as a coronal mass flap, closing by primary intention on top of my graph.
tôi cố gắng là khâu kín.
Great. I ran like this after 4 months,
Sau 4 tháng
and I was happy. Look how much I gained in height and also in
Chào
papillary.
ông Dũng
được
định
chiều cao
From here to here.
lên làm sao biết không?
However, when we have to reopen it,
Anh cũng anh
the implant
đây làm trong
was tubacal and also malposition.
Im này thì cái im này
So,
nó nằm quá lệch ngoài.
it's not that we lost what we gained,
Ông nhé.
but a little bit we lost this papilla here because the implant was malpositioned.
Và
But overall, that's an example of platform,
đây là một
I
cái
like it.
về cái
Is
thuật platform,
an acceptable result.
cái chất kết
Okay.
quả thì cũng chấp nhận được.
Very good.
Có người cái quên tai hát.
Another example of platform before we move to a different technique.
Một cái ví dụ khác về cái
I like this case because the patient had
Hai ngày sau bố.
in her phone all the sequence of what happened. So a lot of times when we see an implant aesthetic complication, I like to think
đây là
what
một cái trường
happened,
hợp
why we arrived here.
khi mà chúng ta thấy
In this case, I know, okay, this is how I saw the patient,
tôi
Two
phải cân nhắc là đâu là lý do
implant
gây ra cái biến chứng này.
tool. Okay. Let's see in the phone of the patient. If I understood correctly, because we're not speaking the same language, the patient arrived to a clinic like this.
Thì đây là cái tình trạng thực tế răng của
Look, the implant was placed
cái nhìn cái vị trí
tubacal
nó
and even worse, too close to the tooth.
và nó quá gần với cả cái răng
Okay, so what did they do?
Video an toàn
Some
học
from
sinh.
lengthening,
tôi làm
and they
giải
start
Video an
restoring.
toàn học sinh.
và sau đó
Đặt
thì
lắm.
But if a patient arrived like this in my clinic, sure, I will do her lengthening, but probably I will replace the implant, okay? If the implant is too back and too close to the tooth, probably either removing the implant and placing the same day
Vậy là tốt hơn
another one here,
và đặt
you can make problem.
nó có thể đặt
But if you like this,
nhưng mà
then they put some provisional crowns.
chưa muốn thay cái
What is the problem of having the implant too close to the tooth? Is that
cái vấn đề mà
when you start to connect into the crown, it's a matter of few months that you have interproximal bone loss
thì
and papilla.
khi mà chúng
Okay?
ta có kết nối cái răng tạng
With provisional,
thì nó sẽ
etc.,
gây ra
etc.
xương và bất kỳ mô
Then they arrive at this, they start to develop some papilla loss or recession. So I will assume the patient was not happy. They did a surgery.
thì đây là cái
They open like this. Remember what I said to you, never ever ever
và sau khi mà bệnh nhân này
doing a surgery with the crown on top of the implant, okay? Because right now, when they have to suture, this is not a good environment to suture.
khi mà chúng ta phẫu thuật
Okay.
bệnh nhân này
They did like this.
gặp đúng cái tình trạng như vậy.
Also, if you open a flap, you cannot do the suture suspended on top of the composite. You can do this only if you tunnel.
Đó. Và chúng ta nhớ
And
là
then,
cái mũi
eventually,
treo
if you like
treo
this,
mà lên cái
like
kẽ
this.
răng thì nó sẽ không được áp
And we're right
trong
at
trường
it,
hợp
okay?
đặt vải, đúng không?
How do we treat this patient?
Và đây là
My goal is to cover the recession, and let's see how much I can gain here. I don't know, maybe I cannot do mine. Probably.
thì tôi cũng rất là thận trọng với cái lâm
So,
sàng này. Có thể
And
đôi khi mình sẽ không làm tốt hơn được.
we did the prosthetic part.
Thì chúng tôi quyết định
We remove the crown, we remove the abutment,
cái
and ideally,
hình tiền phẫu thuật
we should leave the patient like this for 2 months.
trên. Và
I say ideally because I treat the patient in another clinic. I was traveling, the patient was traveling out of the country, so we didn't have that time, and I had to try my best to do this the day of the surgery. So the day of the surgery, I removed the crown, I removed the abutment,
đây là cái thời điểm mà
and I designed a coronal advanced flap,
tôi thực hiện một cái vạt di chuyển về thân thể.
okay, like this. You can see around the implant is the thickness, around the teeth in the middle is full,
thì là bằng tận
more apically is all solid thickness. Look how the implant is, again, to back, closer to.
đấy nó quá bên ngoài.
Okay? Of course, I also removed the temporary crown on number 21. Now, from this photo to this photo, what did it change? From this photo to this photo, I deepitalized
Thì tôi
the
thử
papilla here,
cái biểu mô ở các cái gai điếu.
and I deepitalized this area that once deepitalized becomes my connective tissue plasma. Okay. I take two grafts,
Và tôi lấy hai cái
one from the palate,
một cái mảnh ở khẩu cái
this one on the right from the tuberosity.
và một cái mảnh ở
We also take from the patient PRF, biologic agent that can help with the healing.
từ máu bệnh nhân.
So this is the graph from the palate.
Và đây là cái mảnh
This is the one from the tuberosity. I wish I took more tuberosity to arrive until here. But this is what I
Đây
get.
là cái mảnh ghép đôi củi nó dài hơn.
Stabilization of the graft
Sau đó thì
from the
tôi
palate. Stabilization of the graft from the tuberosity. Like this.
cái mảnh
You can see I'm using the soft tissue and the periosteum to see where I can create some stability or having some anchorage of my graft. Okay. The flap on the palate is slightly open so that we can facilitate the closure of our buccal flap. Before closing, I put PRF on the area to facilitate the healing. Probably it will not determine success or failure, but it can help. And then I close it. It's a long surgery, it's a difficult procedure, but sometimes it's needed. Okay? Great, so then they send me the 2 weeks post-op.
Đây là cái ngày sau.
Like this. By the way, don't be scared if we advance a lot the flap.
Bởi vì chúng ta
Okay? It's like when we advance a lot the flap here, okay? The soft tissue cannot stay on the number, so don't worry. Eventually it will recede.
không có sợ đúng không ạ?
Okay,
Chứ mà
two
bên
weeks.
mô mềm thì nó sẽ không thể giữ được ở trên men rồi. Thì đây là sau 2
And then we're gonna like this around 7 to 8 months.
đây là cái kết quả
Okay.
sau khoảng 7-8 tháng gì đó.
So you can see that also conditioning with a provisional,
Bạn thấy là sau cái giai đoạn
without opening the implant,
bằng cái cục bình
we are like this.
thì chúng ta có cái kết
Now, I'm overall satisfied. It's not perfect, but I think with a single surgery,
hài lòng với kết quả.
that's the best I can do and I can gain. So at this point,
đây là một cái phẫu thuật khá là
the
khó.
patient needs
Cái kết
a
quả
crown here.
tôi nghĩ là đã hài lòng.
Initial plan was new crown here, new crown on the implant, and nothing in here. But since the implant is malpositioned,
Nhưng bởi vì
I suggest
cái
not to open the implant anymore. Otherwise, sure, it will be better than before, but I will lose here a little bit. So basically, they finalized with a bridge.
và cuối cùng thì
This is the last time they sent me a photo of the patient.
cái cầu
Again, I mean, it's not the best case I've done,
thì đây
but from here to here in a single surgery, I will take it. Okay?
đây là một cái ca mà tôi khá
So, this is basically how to gain height
thì đây là cái
with
cách mà
the platform
về
technique.
cơ bản là cách mà chúng ta
However,
làm được cái tăng cái chiều cao mô mềm bằng cái kỹ thuật platform.
There are limitations
Tuy nhiên thì
of this approach, like all the approach where we have to open.
đâu là những cái hạn chế.
What are the limitations that I showed you some cases that they heal nicely?
Thì tôi chỉ cho các bạn
But
xem những cái
as
mà nó lành.
I hope you understand today, I don't have
Cần phải biết rằng là
any problem. I'm not shy to show complications.
tôi không cố
So what happens, I would say often, when we do a flap like this, we put a graft on the crest, is that this part doesn't heal by primary intention. It gets open,
rất có nhiều
the
cái
connective tissue graft gets exposed. Now, it's not a big problem like if you have an opening for vertical GBR, you don't get an infection, but if the graft is exposed, I don't do anything, I let it heal, and usually I gain on the buccal and minimal height.
thì chúng ta
So basically,
chiều cao mong muốn.
what I found in my hands, and I've done a lot of platform technique, opening the flap, is that if you have a big space, okay, like this case of before, if you're doing a platform, okay, and you have, like here I have a big space,
Thì nếu chúng ta
between
có
these implants and this I have a big space,
lớn như thế này
here you have more possibility that you can keep everything closed very
chúng ta sẽ
well.
có cái khả năng
But
đóng mô mềm tốt hơn.
when it's a single tooth,
Nhưng mà
maybe especially a lateral, and I have a lot of laterals with this problem, it's difficult. It's a small area, small little vascularity, it's difficult to keep everything closed with primary intention.
thì rất là
Also,
dễ dàng để
we did a study
rất là dễ cái bản thân mình phải
using ultrasonography as a Doppler ultrasonography
sử dụng
that
cái siêu âm bằng Doppler,
here the audio
siêu Doppler.
or I remove the audio. Let me see if the audio works. Yes. You can listen the blood cells that are passing through, and they are basically you can study and listen the process of revascularization of the connective tissue. Okay? So we study this. We study during the healing how is the process of revascularization of a connective tissue graft. And what we demonstrate is the following. In all the cases in which connective tissue graft after 1 week had very high blood supply, these were the cases where we gain maximum volume. Every time at 1 week, maybe there was some problem with the blood supply, etc. Every time the blood supplies at 1 week was a little bit less, we have more contraction. So this made me think this. When I want to augment verticality of the soft tissue, how can I regain verticality, reducing the chance that the flap opens? Because, as we said, if the flap opens like this, we gain minimum height. So I start to think how to make this. Okay? So some possibility is to gain verticality doing some tunneling, some vista, some pedicle connective tissue, or the vertical tickle. Now, in the last part of my presentation, we're going to see some of these examples. So here, they send me this patient for missing papilla. Do you think it's easy to make this papilla between two implants? 21 and 22 are two implants. It's difficult to gain papilla between two implants. Okay? And even more difficult if one of these implants, number 21, is not integrated. Okay? Unfortunately, the crown was moving. We tried to torque, but we understood that the implant 21 was moving. So if the implant number 21 was placed to buccal, and if the implant number 22 as well to buccal, misses some bone, etc. etc. So, what is my idea? I told the patient, I need 2 surgeries. Surgery number 1, I remove this implant clearly to buccal. So maybe that's why I didn't integrate. So I remove this implant, and at the same time, I do an immediate implant. So as we discussed many times, when the papilla are deficient, and this papilla is deficient, I don't want to cut and to make this open. So I remove this implant, and I can place my implant more palatally in the correct position. I leave the implant submerged, and I use a connective tissue graft as a barrier, as a graft, and also as a membrane. My connective tissue graft grows from the buccal aspect, on top of the implant, occlusal, and palatally. And I can also insert some bone graft on the buccal aspect. So a very small part of the connective tissue graft is exposed, but the graft is big, so we can make it. Okay? Great. This surgery had the goal not to augment papilla, but had the goal of placing an implant without losing more papilla. And we made it. After 4 months, we opened, we made a temporary crown, just opening a small circle. Also, we have to realize that the patient here has altered passive eruption, so we have to make here longer later on. So the patient, after this temporary, she goes home for summer. She come back like this. She told me that the temporary got broken. She went to the local dentist, they made a new one. So I lost a little bit of height, but it's not a problem. Now I have my second surgery. The second surgery is for papilla augmentation. So that was my idea here. My idea to augment these 2 papillae. So this one is good, this one and this one I have to augment. My idea was the following. First of all, talking with my colleague prosthodontist, my colleague prosthodontist told me, look, okay, for me, it's more difficult doing rehabilitation of one implant, this trauma, and an implant with another brand. So he recommended to rehabilitate only implant number
Đó thì tôi
21.
sẽ yêu cầu bác sĩ
Okay,
phục hình.
so this implant
Bác sĩ Huỳnh nói là sẽ khá là
is
khó
healthy.
khi mà chúng ta phục hình.
We're gonna submerge, we're not gonna use it.
Hai kim lên mà hai
So that I also have more space
Sau đó thì
for the soft tissue, for the papilla.
lên kia và chỉ phục hình
And then
sau man đã được
we start to open the palate to make a pedicle connective tissue or a VIP CT. And if you want to make this technique, like we saw in the morning, easier, basically, here you have to make your cut all the way here, so it's easy to move this pedicle to the back aspect. But my goal when I do papilla augmentation is not to cut the papilla.
Tuy nhiên thì chúng tôi không
I can make an incision here as a tica, but all the papillae that I want to augment, I don't cut them. So it was very difficult to tunnel this graft, this pedicle, from palatal to occlusal, and then from occlusal to the back aspect. But with a lot of patience, we made it. And we stabilize the graft there, to the flap. Okay? Very good. Then, after the graft is in position,
Sau khi mà cái mảnh ghép nó được đặt đúng vị trí,
we did our temporary here. The temporary of implant number 21 that I placed, plus cantilever, and we did here crown lengthening. Actually, it's more a gingivectomy because we saw from previous surgeries and we saw from the CBCT that the buccal bone is very far away around this tooth,
ở đây thì
so we just need
răng
gingivectomy.
cửa này thì cái xương bản ngoài ấy, thì nó nằm cách khá là xa so với
Good feeling at 2 weeks.
thì chỉ cần cắt điếu
One second. Making the temporary like this
chiều dài răng ổn định.
connected between 21 and 22 allow me once again to do this type of suture that is pushing the pedicle and the flap coronal.
Cho phép tôi có thể
So again like this at 2 weeks,
khâu cái mũi treo cái gai điếu.
we are like this after 4 to 6 months.
Và sau 4
We have to keep pushing conditioning the soft tissue and leaving space here to have this maturing even more.
thì chúng ta có thể
So,
đẩy cái mô mình.
We stay like this, temporary, and we keep modifying for 6-7 months.
Điều chỉnh cái
We wait,
này trong khoảng 6 đến 7
we wait,
và chờ đợi thôi.
and then we arrive like this to the final crown.
Và đây là cái
And it's a matter of waiting, be patient, and we're able to deliver a nice result for the patient.
sẽ đạt được cái kết quả tốt.
Very good. Now we go to one of my favorite techniques, which is the new vertical ticker. Okay? So, what is the vertical ticker? It's basically using the ticker principle to the ticker principle to gain vertical soft tissue height.
Chúng ta sẽ dùng nó để
For a matter of time,
tăng cái
I
chiều cao
skip
của
this.
mình.
Okay? So, we published this article.
Tôi đã
It's available there. This journal takes a little bit of time, so it's not available as a PDF, but it's published in EGPRB. And the vertical ticker is using the ticker principle to gain height. And let's say that the vertical ticker has two components, two different forms. One form we can see here, where we need small augmentation, like in this patient. This is how we do the vertical ticker. So this is a patient that she wants to redo this crown because it's a different color compared to the veneer. She wants to redo this crown on the implant and she wants to redo the veneer. So before doing this, I want to do some papilla augmentation here and here, and I want to cover this recession. Let's see how we can use the ticker principle. Okay? One second, I have to accelerate some portion here. Okay? So the day of the surgery, since the augmentation is limited, the day of the surgery, I remove the crown, and then I do an opening as ticker. You can see? That's an opening as ticker.
Quay nhé.
Then,
Mai về
it's a
đó.
tunnelization
Tôi sẽ bóc tách đường hầm
all the way.
Quay thì mai
You
về
see,
đó.
without the crown,
tất cả
I
tới
can do my tunnelization.
với cái dao
Okay?
mẫu đường hầm.
It's very important to tunnel the papilla at 360 degrees.
Cái đường rạch
Okay,
đường
tunnel,
rạch dọc
tunnel.
và vào cái túi đường hầm.
Okay. Up release.
Giảm căng vạt.
Okay, you can see that it's important to separate
Cái điểm rất
very
là quan trọng
gently the papilla from the adjacent teeth.
là chúng ta phải
Both
tách
papilla.
cái gai
When you do papilla augmentation, you tunnel also up to the palatal aspect.
và khi mà chúng ta muốn kết gai điếu, chúng ta sẽ phải bóc tách cái gai điếu này tới tận mặt trong. Chúng ta phải nâng cái gai điếu đến tận không chỉ ở phía ngoài mà còn
Okay,
ở
I
phía
want
trong.
to see before I move forward with the graft. I want to see the papillae really moving.
Khi mà trước khi chúng ta tiến hành là lấy cái mảnh ghép thì chúng ta phải đảm bảo là cái vặn ở cái vị trí gai níu này
So
nó
you can
phải
see we're using
kéo được về phía
the
bên
pickup
trong.
principle.
Nó sử dụng
Go
cái
back.
của pickup.
Very good. So let me see. Okay. Look with the probe.
Đấy, với cái hàm
Cố
châm
gắng
Look the movement that I have.
Offset
Want to
này.
have a little bit more.
nó có thể kéo được
So
cái
we're
gai
getting
níu
there.
này về phía thân răng.
Okay. I clean very nicely the root surface.
Để tôi phải làm sạch cái
Then I
chân răng
utilize this papilla.
khử
So I open
cái
just one. Look, when I move this papilla like
khi
this,
tôi kéo
the papilla between 21 and 22.
thì cái gai níu giữa
It's
răng
moving
21 và
very
22
nicely.
rất là dễ
Like that.
dàng có thể đưa được về phía
Okay,
răng.
that's the movement I want to see.
Đó là cái
So for small augmentation, this is how we use the vertical.
Đó, thì đây là cái cách mà
Okay.
chúng ta thực hiện cái vertical.
Then we have two graphs.
Sau đây tôi ghép
One here with an L shape,
mảnh ghép đầu tiên là
like
mảnh
this,
ghép có dạng hình chữ L
and another small graph. This one from the tuberosity,
và
like
cái thứ
that.
hai là
Okay.
từ lồi củ.
Let's see how we insert the two graphs.
Tôi sẽ nhét cái
I pinch this papilla,
đầu tiên là
and since I have an opening as a teacup, there it's very easy to insert this graph. If I tangle, it's more difficult, but still possible. So one suture there.
đầu tiên là chúng ta sẽ cố định nó vào cái gai níu giải phẫu trước.
After I give one suture graph papilla,
Sau khi mà tôi đã cố định một cái
let's see how to insert it underneath the papilla between 21 and 22.
sau đó thì tôi sẽ luồn cái mảnh
I
ghép
pinch the
vào
palatal aspect.
giữa răng 21 và 22.
I go out between the tooth.
Tôi sẽ đi
And the papilla.
phía mặt trong. Đó, đâm ra
I pinch my graph. In this case, I pinch it horizontally. Nowadays, I think I would pinch just one point.
ngày nay thì tôi sẽ chỉ cần đâm một lần thôi.
Okay. I have to pinch this part of the L
Sẽ
that
đâm
I want to
cái-
send
cái
under
vị
the
trí-
papilla.
cái vị trí mà nó tương ứng với cái gai
Like
níu.
this. Nowadays, I will pinch just one point.
Ở đây thì ngày nay
Okay. And now I go back in the same path of before, just reverse.
sau đó thì tôi lại quay
Without
lại.
pinching the papilla on the buccal, I pinch inside to go out parallel in a similar position where I started.
Chúng ta đâm vào cái rãnh
Okay.
cái rãnh
Now
rãnh
it's
lợi.
very easy to
Và
insert the
đâm
graph
vào
there.
cái gai níu
Simply
mặt trong.
look, we lift this part of the teacup like it is a door,
Chúng ta
and we
để
want to
cái
insert
phần-
the graph where we want.
cái phần của cái vặn.
When the graph is in position,
Và khi
we
mà
do the
cái
knot.
mảnh ghép nó đã được
Okay.
đóng đúng vị trí rồi, nó
Very
sẽ
good.
cắm chỉ.
and we have a door here, so I can check that the graph is in the position I want.
Chúng ta sẽ cầm
I do the same in the other side.
mảnh ghép nó đã nằm đúng vị trí chưa?
The two graphs are in position. Okay, here, here. Then I put back the crown, modify it, and then do suspended suture over the contact point.
Và treo
Look,
cái
what a nice link at 3 weeks.
bên.
We gain all the coverage we need, a lot of papilla,
Ở đây chúng ta có cái
And then it's a matter of
tăng sinh rất là nhiều.
doing restoration, new crowns,
Đây là
and
cái
veneers.
sọc phục.
So this is the fourth form of the vertical teacup. When you need small augmentation like this, you make an opening on the side and you tank. But the second form of the vertical teacup is when you need, like in a case like this,
Đó là trong cái trường
to gain more vertical.
Để
Okay?
đầu lưng
Like here, the recession is more severe. It's not that I just need a little bit of papilla. I have a recession at 22. Okay? And let's see together. What did I do? Always I start with the prosthetic part.
Luôn nó bắt đầu với
I
cái
remove crown and abutment.
áo phục hình,
I put a cover screw.
lắp cái
Okay?
trục này
And I submerge the
lắp
implant,
lại và
putting
làm
a temporary magnet.
một cái phục hình.
Already, if you put a temporary magnet in an implant that is malposition, already after 1 or 2 months you gain soft tissue, simply because the implant was malpositioned.
Sẽ có tăng thêm.
Then after 2 months, I do my surgery,
Thì tôi sẽ
and this is how I did in this case the vertical teacup.
và sau đó
So
tôi sẽ sử dụng cái
I open
vertical
again like this to cover this recession,
Thì đầu tiên
and
là
my goal
dòng ở phía
is
xa
to tunnel occlusally.
và
It's like doing a platform technique from Professor Kelly, just without doing an incision in the crest. So the goal is to tunnel the buccal aspect of the implant, but also the vertical aspect.
là
Okay?
không chỉ là chúng ta mắc cách đường
So,
dọc,
of this
mà
technique,
chúng ta mắc cách theo
But
chiều
this,
cả cái
I have two videos
chiều dọc,
I want to show you. Two videos, and then it's the last thing of today. Video number 1, I want to start from this video animation, okay?
Đầu tiên
is video animation.
hình minh họa của cái clip
It is. Ideally, I would like to remove the crown, remove the abutment, and let everything close.
để mô hình
2 months,
sau
the
2
day of
tháng
the surgery, I remove the magnet.
tới cái ngày phẫu thuật thì tôi sẽ
Ideally, right? And then
sau
I
đó
can do my opening
tôi sẽ
like this.
bắt đầu tạo cái đường vào
Especially if the canine has a recession, I think is a great idea to do
ở cái
it.
vị trí răng nanh
Making even just one opening here gives me so much visibility and allow me to tunnel this portion.
và nó cho phép nó có thể tiếp cận để có thể bóc tách đường
This
hầm
portion I have to tunnel
ở cái vùng
all the way. I have to tunnel here, I have to tunnel on the palatal aspect, I have to tunnel here.
tôi sẽ bóc
So
tách
when I created this technique in my mind,
bóc tách đường
I had this doubt.
kỹ thuật này.
If I tunnel occlusally,
Nếu mà khi tôi
will the soft tissue move
thì sao?
up or will not move?
Thì liệu
Actually, I found out that it moves very nicely for 2 to 3 millimeter,
thực tế là
very
Corona.
nicely.
trên lâm sàng
Corona.
tôi cân nhắc là
Cổ
liệu
bọc.
cái này có thể di chuyển được theo chiều dọc hay không thì thực tế
So,
lâm sàng thế là tôi
We do the pickups like if you have a door here,
về
okay?
phía thân răng rất là nhiều.
I can insert my 15C, release the
Tại vì nó vi
flap.
phẫu.
Nó thì dùng cái
Because before working on the coronal portion, on top of the crest, it's better to release the flap on the back aspect. And then we start tunneling
Ở
from
trong
multiple
video anh với tôi là
points.
mỏng lắm.
dùng cái
And we want to free the flap. All the other type of tunneling are tunneling on the buccal aspect. When we do the vertical pickup, we tunnel on the buccal, interproximal, and occlusal.
thì chúng ta sẽ
So basically,
đó là phía ngoài
from the sagittal view, we're doing like this.
phía mặt
We have to tunnel until the palatal side.
và
Not that the palatal flap can be moved, but to make space. And actually, you really do like this. Okay? You can really move all the soft tissue like this. Okay? We depithelize this papilla.
chúng ta khử cái biểu mô ở cái
Because it goes without saying that if this area is not cut, it will not open during the healing. If you do everything properly.
cái điểm hay ở cái kỹ thuật này đó là nếu chúng ta không có tạo đường rạch
Great.
nó sẽ giảm cái nguy cơ
After
mặt
depithelizing
bị lộ đúng không? Trong quá trình
this, we go and we harvest our connective tissue graft. If the canine doesn't have a recession, it can be more rectangle.
chúng ta sẽ đưa luồn cái mảnh ghép này
You
vào.
can even do a T if you want to cover that recession.
Chúng ta
One way to insert it
là
can be
chúng
that
ta muốn là
we do one suture to this papilla,
kết ở cả cái răng cửa giữa
and then sometimes I just push it inside.
cái ghép chữ T.
Other times we can do like this.
Thì đây là
Reach
cái
palatally. You go out interproximally.
đâm từ phía mặt trong thoát ra.
You reach the graft just one time.
Nó thì đâm vào
It is easier.
cái mảnh ghép một lần thôi.
And then you go back,
Sau
pinch
đó
like
thì
this.
nó đi ngược
If I
lại.
have time, I do like this. Otherwise, simply you push it inside. You have an opening from the side that you can check that the graft is exactly
Sau đó thì
where you want.
đưa cái mảnh
Leave
ghép
the
vào
flap
từ phía
before,
bên. Chúng ta lật
and then the graft goes in this position.
cái mảnh
And from the sagittal view, this is what I will have.
thì đây là cái
Okay? Can even be two separate grafts, okay? Or can even add one more graft if I want. At this point, I put back the meria. That will help me with the suture.
ghép thêm nếu mà muốn.
This papilla is open as a
Tôi
cuff.
sẽ gắn lại cái cầu
I do a conventional sling suture,
và tôi sẽ
not suspended.
khâu
A convention.
ở cái vị trí
Like
mà
this.
cái đường rạch dọc ấy, cái vạt
Okay.
gáp thì tôi sẽ khâu treo.
Then after this suture, I do at least 2 sutures
Sau đó
suspended over the contact
chúng ta
point.
sẽ
Look,
dùng hai cái mũi treo
I think maybe deeper here. Flap and graft. Just one time over the contact point. Not. I do one in the other side.
một cái
Maybe pinching even deeper.
thì cũng tương tự như
Over the contact point.
cố định qua
No.
tôi xúc bên và thắt chỉ
And then it's a matter of doing more sling suture.
và có
And
thể
closing,
dùng thêm một cái
like this.
khâu treo đơn để
Perfect.
đưa cái
The last thing I want to show you is this surgery summary video in the patient. And before arriving to the video, there is one thing I want to mention.
thì đây là cái
Like in the video animation,
chúng ta xem cái clip
I would prefer to remove the medulla during the surgery. It will make my life easier.
thì chúng tôi
But in this patient, in the first 2 months, the medulla came out several times.
tuy nhiên thì
So when finally the medulla was in position, I decided not to remove it anymore for doing the surgery. So I kept it.
cái cầu này ra
Okay?
mà thông
Perfect.
thường chúng ta nên tháo
Without me commenting, let's see this surgery. And it's the last thing I show you.
For a while there it was rough, but lately I've been doing better. In the last 4 cold Decembers, I recall
video are never accelerated, okay? I did this surgery in 3 minutes.
Đi đây là cái
If you drink Italian espresso, that's your normal speed.
bác sĩ nói rồi, tại vì đây có đúng là tôi không có tăng tốc kỹ thuật này đâu. Mỗi lần tôi làm mất có 3 phút.
Là sao?
Ông đang nói phép. Cái này không đáng thông thường, ông làm 3 phút thôi.
Bác sĩ Vũ cũng phải bật cười. Ông làm quen đi rồi anh cũng bắn chậm. Mày bó cái này vẫn zin rồ lên. Răng mà làm được vậy chắc là thục. Rất khó luôn. Không biết sang Ấn Độ người ta có cho làm. Ở bên nó xài hơi tốn người. Không biết gì. Thế đây là hồn gì người ta làm dễ còn mình phải đậu vôi rồ có dại. Ngày xưa đánh nhau toàn cái bài này không. Cứ đi đám cưới là bát đĩa bay loạn lên. À không, chữ thật chưa là chữ thật đường dài đi qua ra không tại bên đây, hiểu không? Còn cái này là pickup thường. Nó uốn cái cảnh.
Great, so in order to conclude, finalizing the sutures with several slim sutures, like this, where we have only 2 suspended sutures, healing at 2 weeks,
Đây là cái lệnh thương sau 2 tuần,
healing at 6 months,
hành lương sau 6 tháng.
and then learning from previous case, where even if you gain a lot of soft tissue, a lot of time if you reopen a site where an implant is malpositioned, you might lose a little bit.
Khi mà chúng ta
So we decide once again to leave this implant down there sleeping, and we did a Maryland with 1 week adherent to number 21, 70 to number 21. Okay? This is our augmented papilla, and once again, this is our publication describing these 2 forms of the vertical ticker. With this, we saw a lot of things today. I hope you enjoy as much as I did. Thank you again for your presence and for being here.